Hey, I'm Digi. Halloween's almost here, so check out these 8 weird indie horror games that you can play for free or name your own price before it's too late. Blah. First up is Daemonologie. Have you ever wanted to be the guy going around doing horrible things to people during the Inquisition, or maybe the Salem witch trials? Well, now you can. This game has us play the role of an investigator for the church whose goal it is to find out who's the witch in these lands here. From the overworld, we can check out a variety of locations. Each location has a citizen who lives in the area. We can talk to each one and find out who they suspect the witch to be. Some of the victims are in pretty bad shape. There's this blacksmith who straight up has to tie his jaw to his face or it'll just fall right off. We have the option of not just talking to, but actually trying to extract confessions through torture, either with thumb screws or by pinpricking. It's a little gnarly, to be honest. Every action takes some amount of in-game time, and at the end of 5 days we have to make a decision. The game seems to be saying I did the right thing in choosing who I think the witch was, but one of the comments on the game page wonders out loud whether you get paid either way, whether you're wrong or not. I recommend this game for the creepy, dismal atmosphere and these bizarre and horrible visions we get when we go to sleep. The game is kinda short at 20 to 25 minutes per run, but it's interesting to see what you can make happen on each try. If you manage to find a different ending or anything like that in the game, can you let me know in the comments? The next game is Ameshidama. This is the first of like a whole bunch of RPG Maker games we have this week. This is also another one of those games where the aesthetic just kind of grabbed me and I just went with it. We play as this silent protagonist girl and wow, this character art is great. I'm especially loving the outfit design here. Her dress is sticking its tongue out at us. Can you imagine a VTuber looking like this? Anyway, we wake up in this dungeon of some building and we're left to our own devices. As with a lot of games like this, there's clues and the books scattered around. Seems like a bunch of children turned into some squid things somehow, and eventually the plague or maybe a curse or whatever it is spread from person to person until it took out the whole village or town. The game leaves things vague enough that it's fun just to speculate on what's going on here. In terms of gameplay, we're mostly playing a puzzle game here. Lots of vases to move around. Watch out for these mannequins, they'll get quite cross with you if they're not wearing their favorite outfits. Oh look, these rabbit dolls are having a little party. They're so happy. Soundtrack-wise, we have fairly standard mysterious synth music on a loop throughout the whole game. Overall, I enjoyed this game, but it took a little bit of back and forth to figure out what I was supposed to do and where. Answers just don't always jump out at you. It took me about 45 minutes from start to finish. Play this game if you enjoy the aesthetic. Next up is the Last Utopi. File this under horrific, legally distinct IKEA stores, which I'm surprised is a genre, but it kinda is. In this game, the world has been all but destroyed by a strange alien species of highly toxic spore that took over the entire planet. We play the role of Hana, a woman leading a research project to investigate the spores, which were tracked down to Utopi, a furniture and home goods store, and ground zero for the spore infection. I like how this game tries to pass off our very basic looking inventory as cutting edge technology. There's just something funny about that. My main complaint about the game is how slowly we walk around. It's not uncommon when playing games like this for the first time to stumble around a whole bunch looking for an item or something that you missed. And sure enough, there's a key here in the bathroom that I totally missed the first time due to this grainy effect over everything. I think it's meant to simulate fog or something like that, but I ended up wandering all over the place looking for it. It's not a big deal in and of itself, but being that we walk so slow, it makes things take a while. I'll say this in the game's favor. This weird pod-looking thing, it's actually a big amber crystal, is eye-grabbing, and it's a lot of what drove me to check the game out. After figuring out what really happened, we get confronted with a choice. Either join the evil Megacorpo and save our own skin, or die miserably on a planet where just the air is toxic. This game took me about 35 minutes to play through, and it was a fun little adventure. I'd say check it out if it seems interesting to you. Dreamcatcher, 2003. Alright, so this game is kind of a mixed bag. We start off in this weird room with giant frogs floating by. Kiki is here to be our guide and tells us to come along on a fantastic voyage. This game is arranged in a series of episodes. The first episode has us trying to find a cold drink for Kiki. Right away, we can see there's a huge Yume Nikki kind of influence going on here, with a little bit of Undertale for good measure. This guy who owns the corner store is a broken down fridge, so we need to head over and get the wrench. And I do mean that literally, like the guy is a wrench, and get him the help. The arrangement of the buildings change every time our goal changes. Right away you notice that the game doesn't exactly respect your time, as it has you walk in this very long spiral to get to where you want to go. Eventually, we're told to get the wrench's medicine, and here's where things get a little bit weird. I really enjoy this big eyeball effect, by the way. Weirdly, the game changes completely, halfway through, with no warning. Now we're in a first-person segment where we have to avoid this pixelated girl. The issue with this part is that there's no checkpoints, and whether you win or lose is kind of based on chance. Don't just magically know which way to turn. Dead end, start over. I actually gave up on this part the first time I played it because I got a little bit frustrated. Well, once you win this segment, this happens. Does the game actually want me to plug in my controller? The game actually closes itself in between episodes. Upon reopening the game, Kiki takes us to a desert area where we have to find a different drink because we somehow never managed to deliver the one that we found in the first place. John Lemon here, -2, won't let us into the club where they have the drinks unless we go down into this hole and find a code for him. There's another mini game where we're basically just playing FNAF and Simon Says at the same time. Does anybody else say FNAF like that? This is basically where I stopped playing just because I personally don't have a ton of patience for this kind of thing. But there's more to be seen in the game, I'm sure of it. If you're patient, I recommend checking out this game, because it is fairly unique in visuals and tone compared to what I usually see. And if you get past this part, maybe you can let me know what happens. Cohabitation. This is another RPG Maker game. This game's horror is honestly a bit more philosophical instead of conventional. The game starts us off in this weird dream world where this thing asks us about morals and ethics, and then to tell it what we look like and what our partner would be like, if we had one. I always shit myself with cheeseburgers, so I called my partner Borgar. Well, it turns out we're actually an alien on another world. Our species, the Alkians, is that queen and drone type, like ants, and wouldn't you know it, we're not a queen. There's another species called the Hall that exists on this world, but they're extremely dangerous and prey on us every time the sun goes down. We wake from stasis with amnesia, and our superior is panicking because there was a massive break-in by Hall monsters in the tower next door. We're assigned to recapture some signal transmission equipment there, if we can survive the monsters. I just love how the monsters take various forms. This one looks like AI slop, and for all I know it probably is, but this one's just an orange owl oni. Remember that game? Once we find the transmitter, things start to get a little philosophical. We want to find another planet to live on, away from the halls, but we stop and consider for a second the fact that we might actually end up subjugating whatever life form there is already living on whatever planet we find. Cue actually changing perspectives to a human on Earth who works for SETI, who actually picks up the transmission we make. Although I'm not a fan of the use of AI in any game, like, ever, I decided to include this one because some real thought was put into this idea that, hey, maybe other species might be worried about their own capacity to cause harm to other species, just like we might be. It's an interesting idea to explore. I think you should check this game out if you want to mix a little bit of RPG Maker spookiness with some sci-fi moral issues. Next up is The Melting Apartment. This game was made as a sorta homebrew game for the Game Boy. In other words, you could download this and play it on a Game Boy emulator if you wanted. I played it in the browser. This is a short game where you play a detective investigating an apartment building where somebody went missing. We start off in basically the same scene as Uninvited, but we quickly move to the apartment building that's rife with creepy management and distressed tenants. Weirdly, it seems like the building itself is bleeding. This is a very short game, and I finished it in like 13 minutes, but I enjoyed the visuals very much. It's impressive what they were able to do with the Game Boy's limited tech. There's even a shooting mini-game. Sound-wise, it's what you might expect from a Game Boy, but I think the music is fairly well done. And if I'm not mistaken, the game also has multiple endings, so you could probably find one or ones that I didn't if you give it a bit of time. Hello, Charlotte. This game came out way back in 2015, and I'm willing to bet a lot of people know about it already. Still, I had never heard about it before, and it definitely fits my definition of weird, so I thought I would include it in this video. This is the last RPG Maker game of this video. We play as this girl who lives in a house with a bunch of weird robot and non-human friends and neighbors who drop in from time to time. There's some weird lore in here early on about observers and puppeteers, that's us the player, and puppets, which is what they call humans for some reason. Our non-human neighbors ask us to hang out with another kid named Felix for a time while they work on some science experiment or a dissection or something like that. And wandering around, we manage to find ourselves in a parallel dimension, accessed through these giant TVs or through locked doors. We need to find our way back to safety and also make sure that Felix is okay. This game is definitely interesting, but I find it to be a bit obtuse. I wandered around for ages trying to find the solution to a puzzle that turned out to be I wasn't mashing A in the correct place, and I couldn't figure out the answer to this, which one is lying and which one isn't type of situation. Still, there's a walkthrough available online, so it shouldn't bug you too much. This game likes to troll you, early and often. There's multiple situations where simply exploring ends with you getting blown up, vaporized, or burned, or torn to shred by bears, and so on and so forth. I almost feel bad for this girl. Eventually, a bit of lore comes out about these all-powerful godlike beings that can create mini-universes. This is where stuff starts to get really weird. I recommend this one for the early mid-2010s troll energy. It'll take you a long time to finish if you go in alone without a walkthrough, so this could actually occupy your time for a while. It's also the first part in a series, so that goes even more so. Okay, last game. Rome 0120. There's actually not much to this game, but I decided to include it because it reminded me just so much of the Newgrounds point-and-click games from the early and mid-aughts. Like this one that Retsupre checked out back in the day, made of real pictures. The itch page for this game is like completely bare, like there's almost no context whatsoever to what this game is. I can only assume that they made the assets by walking around the house for the outdoor scenes, and creeping around in some abandoned building for the indoor scenes. This sort of thing was always pretty atmospheric, with creepy ambient music and scenes that look like something could jump out at you, even if it wasn't programmed that way. There's a lot of things like this going on where they just kind of like censored out entirety of some scenes. So they just kind of censored out parts of entire pictures, which makes me wonder why they didn't just take the picture out altogether and use a different room or something. Clearly they're trying to avoid doxing themselves, but it's like, wow, why? You know? There's puzzles to be had here too, such as this thing with the water heater in the basement. I couldn't really figure out what was going on with a lot of it. Simply getting inside the house by finding keys was as good as I was able to do. Story-wise, there's not a ton here, but it seems like a fairly typical story about mental health disorders and science experiments. Still though, if you want a good idea of what some horror flash games used to be like back in the day, I recommend giving this one 20 minutes of your time because it honestly nails the experience almost perfectly. Alright, well, there you have it. I had a lot of fun doing weird horror games all October, and I'm already looking forward to next year. Hey, if I entertain you at all, consider subscribing or seeing me play games live on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays and Thursdays around 8 p.m. Eastern US-Canada time. Hey, do you know a weird game I might want to check out and show everybody? Let me know in the comments below. Happy Halloween, everyone. It's the best time of year.